We are talking to Nick, who identifies as Catholic and will defend my faith. Can't wait for it. Nick, are you there?
Yes, sir. How you guys doing?
It's all right. Thank you for calling in.
No problem. No problem. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I was going to say, how's my audio? Is it all right? Good enough? I hope it's not cutting out.
You sound good. You're clear, and there are no cracks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. Aron, I like you. You're funny, man. Sometimes I love the way you give your interpretation of the Bible or your verses, and with a twist on it. It makes me laugh too. I'm not gonna lie.
Thank you.
It is fun. Yeah, but so I guess so since I'm not that bright of a guy, nor am I well read or anything like that, I guess I'd like to keep it as simple as possible. So don't go using big words on me, or else I won't be able to hang with you guys, right? But I'd just like to say, maybe if you guys don't mind, can I flip it on you and just say, can you ask, or can you tell me why I should not be a Catholic Christian, and I should be whatever your worldview is?
Well, my worldview is simply this. I don't want to be convinced of something that is not evidently true, because the truth matters. And so I shouldn't say that something is true until or unless I can show the truth of it, the evidence leading to that conclusion. Anything beyond that, I mean, it's just going to be base speculation, right? My opinion means nothing. What matters are what the facts are.
Right. Okay. And those facts, would you say mostly go by scientific facts then?
Well, absolutely, yes. I mean, there are a number of other things that are not necessarily scientific, like the fact that religion seems to be bolstered by every type of logical fallacy. If you look up list of logical fallacies online, you go back and explore each one of them, you realize that you've seen every one of these used as an argument for God. And conversely, every argument for God is a logical fallacy. There is not one thing anybody can show about God that is actually true. There's not one that no religion can show that they got it better or more accurate than every other religion. None of them. It is literally all make-believe, and that's it, and that's all.
So on the best argument that you've heard of the uncaused first cause argument, how do you feel about that one?
Well, there is no. It's hard to say that there's a best argument. The Kalam Cosmological Argument is the closest one that you're talking about right now, and that's where neither of the premises are necessarily true, and the conclusion is a non sequitur. So it fails every way that it can fail.
On top of that, I've actually presented this before, and I'm hardly the only person to notice that if you actually use the Kalam Cosmological Argument and you realize all this argument about causes in the theories of causality, there are 4 different kinds of causes. One of them is material cause. So if you go with the argument as presented, but remind you that when you say everything that begins to exist has a cause, if you just say everything that begins to exist has a material cause, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe had a material cause, you don't get to theism. You would just say, all right, well, whatever was the cause was also itself material. And if you don't think that argument follows, then you've actually thrown out the logic of that sort of cosmological argument itself. Because if you're saying there's an exception, then there's an exception to causality, and you can't use that to then argue for your particular premise.
Yeah.
Well, would you agree that whatever it is that... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say, would you agree that whatever it was that made time, let's say, that it would have to be timeless to be able to make time, right? Doesn't that follow reasonably?
So there's a few things there. One is it even coherent to talk about a time before time? If that's not coherent, then talking about that circumstance is to talk about the color of an invisible pink unicorn. It is not going to be informative. And if time can begin, then whatever is basically the quote unquote cause of time, well, what is the reason to think then that is also not natural? Again, the argument that I am saying is like whatever the cause is will have a material component because every cause we've ever seen has a material component. To now say here's the exception is basically to say, all right, then cosmological arguments don't actually work. There are exceptions to it. So either we can say there's an exception for the universe itself, or we're consistent and there's nothing that provides evidence for theism.
Yeah. So when William Lane Craig revitalized or republished his version of the Kalam Cosmological Argument, it had already been refuted by Carl Sagan 20 years earlier. So if you want to say that what Carl Sagan said is, if you want to say that God always existed, why not save a step and say that the universe always existed? What difference does it make? And
Wouldn't
for
you
me,
say science goes against that. The majority of science goes against that the universe always existed. Would you say that?
No, that's not true.
Okay,
I've talked to a number of
good.
astrophysicists about this. Even Lawrence Krauss does not believe that the author of A Universe from Nothing. Even he does not believe that there was ever nothing. I don't think anybody does. Sean Carroll, who I've interviewed a number of times, he says that in his favorite cosmological model, the universe is eternal in both directions. And I've seen there was a video by Skydive Phil in which he interviews a number of astrophysicists, physicists, and philosophers all at the same time, all talking about how the universe is eternal. So on the premise of the Kalam Cosmological Argument, anything that begins to exist has a cause. That's an arbitrary statement. And causation, as Aron just explained to you, isn't even defined in physics the way that religious people do. Then the second premise, the universe began to exist. No, not necessarily. There's a possibility that it might have begun to exist, but all the physicists that I know of say no, that it is in some form or other, it is eternal. So both premises have failed. And then the conclusion, where William Lane Craig says, the cause of the universe, therefore, has to be a magic, imaginary, invisible man. No, there's nothing to conclude that.
Gotcha. How about the supernatural? Do you believe in any form of supernatural?
You got some evidence for it?
Yeah. I would say I got evidence for it.
What you got?
Free will. Do you believe in free will?
Free will wouldn't be supernatural, but we also don't have evidence for it.
So do you believe in free will, though, you?
I don't believe in like much of anything, unless we're talking about, human rights. I would say that I believe that. I believe in the Constitution of the U.S. I believe in that.
Do you believe you have free will? Do you believe you have free will? Sorry,
No.
I'll be a little more specific. Do you believe you have free will?
No.
Okay, got you. At least you're
And
being
more
consistent with it.
more importantly, within Christianity and Islam, you logically cannot have free will. It is logically denied.
God knows everything that would happen? Just because God knows everything that would happen?
And because in order for God to do anything, he has to overtake your free will. He has to harden Pharaoh's heart. And the Quran is more explicit about it, that God decides he's going to punish people for believing or not believing. That's it. It doesn't matter whether you're good or evil. It doesn't matter what horrible things you've done to other people. The only thing that's important is whether or not you believed a particular set of lies from a particular set of liars. And God decides who will believe and who won't. And then
right, that's with the Quran. That's Islam. That's right. Islam. Right. Yep.
Right. But the Bible says the same thing, just not as explicitly. So God decides who's going to believe and who won't. And then God decides he decides that I'm not going to believe, and so then he's going to punish me for not believing. And it
Are you
doesn't
talking about the
matter.
Quran or the Bible? Sorry, a Quran or Bible right
Bible.
now? Are you talking about
Bible. But they're both
Okay,
the same.
no, sorry, you don't. That's not true. But go ahead. That's not true.
What's not
He
true?
gives us free will. That's part of what it means to be
No, he doesn't.
made in the image and likeness of God. Is that we have free will?
He can't, and we don't.
Why?
Logically,
Just
it's
because he knows
impossible.
what's going to happen? Why? Just because he knows
Because
that means
you
he's the
can't.
cause of what we
That's
choose.
right. God, when he supposedly tests people, he already knows the outcome of the test. So already that's logically
Correct.
inconsistent.
The
But you
test is
cannot
for
make
our
it.
benefit only. The test is for our benefit only.
Nick,
He
No,
needs nothing. God
you
needs
might want to
not
be
a
a bit
time in the
careful
Bible.
here.
There is not a
Let-
single time in the Bible when any of God's tests are for our benefit. Never once. Not one time.
I believe that's your interpretation. And thank God that
No,
if you were
I can
talking to a
demonstrate it.
Protestant, again. Oh,
I
well, I
can
was going to say if
demonstrate
you're
it.
talking to a Protestant, you'd be going back and forth. But we're not a sola scriptura. That means Bible alone church. We have sacred tradition as well, which tells us what the Bible means as a whole. So
I get it.
That's the difference of being a Catholic Christian and a Protestant.
So in your religion in particular, you have even less free will because you're not even allowed your own interpretation of it. You have to be told what it means.
Thank God for that, because we can see the destruction of what happens with that, right?
As if the Catholic Church has been this great bastion of consistency, morality, and peacefulness. That has been the legacy of the Catholic Church, right?
You're talking about the sinners that chose to go against what the Catholic Church teaches? Yeah, we can talk about that all day.
I'm talking about the motherfucking popes who basically said, let's have a motherfucking crusade. I'm talking about the popes that basically okayed the Inquisitions. I'm talking about the organized boy fucking that the modern Catholic Church has done.
How about the Valladolid trial?
Well, can I respond to that? Can I respond to that really quick?
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, what you said, the BF, which breaks my heart and is real sad. But you're talking about the BF that happens everywhere in the world, such as public schools,
the church
the soccer
literally
coaches,
covered it up for decades, and it had to be revealed by outside secular sources. The Catholic Church lied to the world and allowed more children to be harmed, and did everything they could, both with their religious and legal powers, to protect themselves, to literally continue the harm of young boys. So no,
Nick,
absolutely fucking not.
Yeah, Nick, I want to touch on something important here. So it has happened that child rape has occurred, very rare occasions, in public schools and things like that. They're not
very rare.
It's not that it's not that it's never happened. I'm not going to say that it's never happened, but within the Catholic Church, for decades, there has been a system to protect these people from doing exactly that. In 1991, I read my first article about this, where a bishop, where there was somebody in Louisiana was being charged with all of these child rape instances, and when the governor decided, well, he's a Catholic, so he's a Catholic priest, and so the governor just pardoned him. And so the parents of this raped child tried to go over the governor's head in their kind of system. So they go to the bishop, and the bishop said on public record that if the Catholic Church were to, in 1991, he said if the Catholic Church were to prosecute every homosexual pedophile priest, their words back then, the Catholic Church would be in the litigation of the billions of dollars. That was in 91. So we have a system that allows, protects, and perpetuates child rape to a degree beyond anything that's ever accidentally happened in a public school. When I say accidentally, that's not fair, but I mean, it has the very rare instances. It's hard to get away with raping a child in a public school, but the priest can do whatever the hell he wants and then just be moved to another parish so that he can continue to do it again.
How about the gymnastics or the Olympics or the soccer coaches or the basketball coaches or the... What about
them? What about them?
You're saying the same thing, that it's almost impossible to get away with? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
I would say that if you're Catholic,
that brings me
more likely that you'll do that.
Really? Okay. If you say so.
Why was Darth Ratzinger removed from his papal seat before his death?
Was he removed or did he resign? I thought he resigned by choice.
He had to be removed because he was not. It wasn't just that he was a Nazi youth. It was that he spent his career protecting homosexual pedophiles who were predators against other children.
Okay, well,
so when all of this was exposed, exposed in modern day, they had to out of office so that he could die quietly some other place and let Francis take over.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank God.
But the point that we were arguing about, the point that we were supposed to be arguing about.
Let me finish this thought, and then we can go back to whatever you want to say. I was just going to say, thank God Almighty that there is a judge and there is justice, because those in the church trying to tear down the church from within, they will face God Almighty, and there will be justice for that. So,
yeah,
but in your worldview, they're getting away with it clean, and they're just going to die and get away with everything. That's pretty sad.
Exactly
right?
Opposite. Exactly opposite. We don't wait for some magic, imaginary, invisible man to perform justice after the fact. And it wouldn't be just going to hell wouldn't be justice anyway. That's the ultimate injustice.
Mm.
But people like Darth Ratzinger had to face actual justice. That's why they removed him, because it was going to tarnish the entire church. They had to get him out of office, even though he was not dead, because there was no way that they could defend his actions. They had to replace him with someone else right damn now. Now, when you go back over the history of the papacy, there's a ton of popes who were evil, sodomistic assholes, but they got away with it because there is no public media, and they were the law, so it didn't matter. But in reality, history will be our judge, whether there's a God or not. And human legal situations can override the church now where they couldn't before.
When do you know when that started? When they were able to now and not before? Do you know when that is? Because I don't.
You don't know when the Catholic Church was no longer the ultimate law of every land?
No, I don't.
When the Pope, even the Pope, now has to worry about the shit that he does because police might be at the door of the Pope. It used to be that the Pope could just do whatever the hell he wanted and nobody could counter him. But now that's changed.
Are you sure about that? Because that's what I'm asking you. When was that, and when did that stop? Is what I'm asking you.
When did what stop?
Where they were able to do anything they wanted and not worry about the law, but now they have to worry about the law. When did that change?
Right.
When did that change?
I believe I just gave a great example. Darth Ratzinger, for example, went to Africa and told all of these people that were suffering in the height of the AIDS epidemic that he told them that the use of condoms spreads AIDS. You believe that? What a horrible thing to tell people. But this is a guy who has been going off of generations of being able to do and say whatever the hell he wants because he's a fucking pope, and nobody can contest him. But now we can. So when Darth Ratzinger is like putting up a front to protect all of these pedophile priests and move them all to different parishes, that shit explodes. Public media, people can read now. At the origin of the Catholic Church, nobody could read, and nobody could read in Latin. So the Catholic Church controlled what was told and the interpretations that you are supposed to believe. Now that shit don't work anymore because we figured out what Carl Sagan said. Arguments from authority are worthless. Show me the facts.
Yeah, how about reason, though? You got to admit, you have to use your reason, because are you not using your reason just to admit that you believe you're a real person and that you exist, right?
Am I using my reason to accept that I'm a real person? And the probability would certainly lend that way, wouldn't it? Occam's razor supports me.
I wouldn't even say reason. It's just instantly noticeable. Like, I see a wall in front of me. I don't reason there's a wall. I just immediately perceive there being a wall. It's even like pre-reasoning. It's just like instantly, sensing.
Yeah, as David Hume said way back in the day, that we have no choice but to make the same assumption that a baby or a beast would, that our senses are giving us some truthful information about the world around us, and it would be literally madness to try to believe otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess back to the very first question, if you can, what's the most simplest way you would tell me why I should not be a Catholic no more and I should just believe in nothing or a little bit of everything, how you guys do?
Why would you have to believe in anything? Why should you? What does that even mean, believe in?
Well, the questions of a child. Why am I here? What happens when I die?
Okay.
What is going on in this reality?
Can you admit that you don't know the answer and then explore what that answer might turn out to be and accept whatever that answer might evidently be without having to make believe in any particular answer before you even investigate it?
Yeah, exploring's good, and I don't want to believe in fairy tales neither, of course.
Well, then good. You can give up on the Bible straight away. So when we're talking about believing in, I don't believe in any of the conclusions that I've come to because they're all tentative and they're all based on facts.
That you exist, that you are, that I am, that you exist.
Yeah.
You have to believe in that.
No, I don't have to believe in anything. This, as Hume said, we don't have a choice. It would be literally madness to try and come up with any other conclusion. If I were to try to believe that my senses are entirely false and that everything I perceive about the universe is wrong, that is insanity. I have to work in conjunction with the reality of the real world. Now, we have before us two hypotheses, and we should weigh multiple hypotheses whenever possible. We have a perspective, an atheist perspective, a science perspective, however you want to put it, that is supported by all of this data that we can test. And then we have the unsupported assertions of impossible absurdity that comes only from the imaginations of men and cannot be substantiated by any means whatsoever, ever. And you've chosen to believe that one. So the question should be, why would you want to make believe what is not evidently true?
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to believe a lie or make believe in anything, but it answers, my worldview answers more of the questions that I have, more of the real questions than your worldview does.
Your worldview doesn't have an answer for anything. Give me an example.
Where did we come from? Who made us? What happens when we die? Why are we alive?
Who made us already fallacious? Who made us already is fallacious. It assumes not only that there's a who, but it assumes that we were made. We were not made. So there's two fallacious assumptions right there. What?
We came out of thin air?
No.
Right. So we were made.
You're the one that believes. Christians are the ones that we believe that we poofed out of thin air because God said abracadabra and poofed everything out of nothing. Atheists,
yes, the only one that can make something out of nothing. Correct.
Hold on. I want to be very, very clear. Atheists, hold on, let me finish. Atheists do not believe that everything came from nothing. Christians are the ones who believe everything came from nothing, from an incantation of a magic enchantment.
Almost.
Atheists don't believe that.
Okay, so then where did we come from again? Life?
As we mentioned before, the universe is in one sense or another eternal.
I missed it.
Okay.
Right.
As we mentioned before, the universe is in some sense. Right. So there was never a time when there was nothing. So if what is eternal was never created, it didn't come from anywhere, it was always there. Now, things change.
Do you have any idea of what it was, what nothing was, or what? I mean, what?
Why would I have an idea of what a thing? Why would I have an idea about a thing I don't believe in? If we do not believe that there was ever nothing, then why would I have an idea of nothing? Why would I pontificate about a thing I don't believe in and that the scientists that I know of don't believe in either? Why would I even try to fantasize about such a thing when it evidently is not true?
Where does science say that life came from again, then?
Do I need to show you my videos on abiogenesis? They're a lot more complicated, I warn you, than any of my videos on evolution. They are in depth, and it's very confusing. And if you can't understand evolution, which is relatively simple, you damn sure are not going to understand abiogenesis, because it's a hell of a lot more complex. Because it's basically
chemistry.
Would you
say majority of people actually understand evolution? No, even though God chose to do it that way. That's
most
fine.
people don't understand a damn thing. Most people don't understand anything.
And by comparison, I would say this
does abiogenesis answer the question of where the first life form came from?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'll have to check it out then.
And Nick, it's also worth noting, while definitely many people don't know evolution that well, the number of people who know and understand evolution is way higher than the people who understand the Trinity. Because that number is 0.
Right, well, correct, because whoever claims to understand the Trinity, they are lying, or they think that that's not God. That's not really God, because we can't comprehend all of God. We can only get glimpses and pieces
my point is you don't want to use the premise of
a
lot of people don't understand something to say a reason not to believe it, because if you do that, then you need to throw out the entirety of Catholicism, because it has the Trinity as one of its principal foundation points.
But that's talking about the Creator. How in the world would I can't even understand everything about you. How would anybody understand everything about the one God, the Creator? How? Like, it just makes perfect sense that we wouldn't
anything.
That we wouldn't understand everything about him.
Okay, how does anybody understand anything when you can't demonstrate that there's any reality to it at all?
Well, there is, but you're not buying into it. You're now calling the universe eternal.
I don't have to buy if it was real. If it was real, I wouldn't have to buy into it. You'd be able to show, like with evolution. I can show you evolution in such a compelling way that you will have to admit that, yeah, evolution is a real thing. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I can show it to you. You can't
so the hiddenness of God, you're saying. The hiddenness of God, right?
Wait. You can't show that there's any truth at all to Catholic belief.
Okay. Are you saying because of the hiddenness of God? You're saying if God existed, why in the world can't we just see him? Right? Would you say that's your question?
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
You can't show that Catholicism, as I mentioned earlier, before an hour ago, as I mentioned a long time ago, no religion can show that they got anything more accurate than everybody else. Show me how Catholicism got anything more accurate than Protestantism, than Islam, than Baha'i, than Sikhism or Hinduism. Show me that Catholicism got anything more accurate. How do we know that?
I could tell you my steps really quick without getting depth, so you understand where I'm coming from at least. So the church teaches we could know God exists by the light of natural reason alone, right? So just by looking at stuff and using our reason, we could say, duh, of course something created this. Then the second step is, who is this thing? Who is this God? Right?
Okay,
and
so
that's
the first
where the
step.
Wait, let me finish.
So
I'll finish and then you can tear it down. Let me just finish and then you can tear it down. So because we'll probably never get there.
Your first step is the problem. The complex question fallacy, also known as the question begging fallacy, is ubiquitous throughout every religion. All of them assume their own conclusions without question. That's what you're doing. So you assume your own conclusion. A thing exists, therefore a magic invisible man made it. That's what you're saying. You can't show there's any.
Hey, how about this? Can you admit you're saying nothing created everything, even though I don't think nothing ever existed? Can you admit you're saying that?
I said that nothing ever existed. I said there was never a time when there was just nothing. I corrected you on this 4 or 5 times already, and here you are already.
But I'm saying it's a contradiction.
You said that I said that nothing created everything. If I said that there was never a time when there was nothing, that's not what I said. If I said that there was never a time when there was something needing to be created out of nothing, again, you're misrepresenting me. So no, I did not say that nothing was ever created or out of nothing. No, I never said anything like. I said the opposite of that. So you're going to show me that there is evidence for, not a logical fallacy of assumption, but evidence for your God, and then not just a God, but because you're arguing for Catholicism, you've got a whole lot more hurdles to jump through. You got to show me how Hinduism is wrong, every variant of it, and how Sikhism
I haven't
is wrong.
studied Hinduism like that, so I can't tell you about Hinduism on that level because I haven't studied it like that. Right? I could just tell you why I believe what I believe. You know.
Why you believe something that you don't know. So again, go back to the original question. I asked you, why would you want to believe something that is not evidently true?
Because to me, it is evidently true as far as it can be. Because at the end of the day, I could be wrong about anything, right? But I would have to say that I'm 99% sure. So I leave that 1% room of, hey, maybe I'm insane, or maybe my thinking is not right, or maybe right. But the 99%.
For you to be 99% sure, you would have to have extraordinary evidence for what you claim. Not just it seems reasonable. It would have to be so absurdly near impossible for it to be the case that you just have so many pounds and pounds and mountains of evidence that you can wheel out, just like we can with evolution, for example. But if all you have is can't come from nothing, Bill Craig said so, then maybe you don't actually have mountains of evidence. You have personal confidence, but you can't actually back it up with demonstrable evidence. And that is not the same thing as showing something is true.
Yeah. So when I say that it's not evidently true, what is evidence? And I have to explain this all the time. Evidence is a body of facts, objectively verifiable data. That means that you can show it, and we both accept it because we can see it, right? It's either not in dispute or it's indisputable in that it's objectively verifiable. Those are the facts. And then you have a fact that becomes evidence when it indicates one position or eliminates another. So you've got a body of facts that are positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant with your God assumption. Now, when I say that there is no such fact, you don't list any because you don't have any, and you just tell me that your belief, your logical fallacy of the question of you're assuming your own conclusion, you say that that's enough. I'm 100% or 99% sure of this foolishness that I believe in, but you haven't been able to show any evidence because you don't have any evidence, which means it's not evidently true. Back to the original question. Why would you want to believe something for which you cannot label any evidence?
You said evidence are facts. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yes.
Is that the correct definition? Because I thought evidence has to be interpreted, and there's much evidence that is many times interpreted incorrectly, therefore given a whole different conclusion than what you first thought, right?
Look it up. The simplest definition of evidence is a fact that indicates. So we are talking about facts, things that are objectively verifiable, things that are known to be true, and that are also indicative of one thing or eliminating another. So yes, you don't have any evidence of God. Nobody does. Why would you want to believe in a particular subset of religious denomination of a thing that nobody can show is even real?
Well, the way I see it is evident that something.
What is your evidence?
Created.
What is your evidence?
Here it is. Something created everything that we see.
Wrong.
Because where else did it come from?
Right, because if it's eternal, then it didn't come from anywhere. Do you remember when we had this conversation earlier? If it's eternal, it didn't come from anywhere.
I know, but there's a reason why it's not sinking in, because it don't really make sense. That's why.
Nick, may I try this?
I understand, but personal incredulity is not evidence. That's another logical fallacy. Fallacies are not evidence. Yes. Neither are arguments. You need a fact that points to your creator.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
And Nick, I was going to say also, Nick, if the whole thing is like it doesn't sink in that there's this eternal thing, then I have to ask, who created God? And if your answer is God is not created, then we would say whatever logic that you think allows that to even be possible, it applies just as well to the universe. So if you object to the universe being eternal, you must object to God being eternal for the same reasons.
Okay, the difference is, I would say the universe doesn't have a mind while God has a mind. You think the universe
Why does
has
having
a mind?
a mind mean something doesn't need to be created? I have a mind and I was created. I can talk to my parents about it if you want me to.
Yes, but who created them, and then who created them all the way back to the first?
Either way, this disproves completely, 100%, that minds does not mean no cause. So you just made something up with no reason to believe it, and you have nothing but excuses. That's why I'm pointing this out. If you think there can be something eternal without a cause, calling it God, calling it the universe, at that point, it's just a matter of what is preference, and preference is not evidence.
Because you guys want me to believe this bomb over here, let's say this bomb that explodes, that a mind did not create that bomb. Like how
Why would I want you to believe something like that?
How can I believe that?
Why would I want you to believe?
Isn't that similar to the story of the Big Bang and the universe and all of why we're here?
No.
Not remotely.
No,
not on any
I
level.
understand it's not. I understand it's not a real explosion. I know you guys will say that, but I'm saying, is that a glimpse of what?
Then why bring up something that you know is
anyway?
wrong as the analogy? So, Nick, that's already kind of disingenuous to bring up something, but say you already accept our objections. Come on, if you think it's a bad analogy, don't use a bad analogy. Secondly, here's the thing:
well, all analogies
we are going to
collapse eventually. All analogies.
Yes, but when it starts off sucking from the very first moment, you don't use it at all. When you know it's bad from the get-go and there's no purchase from it and it actually confuses the discussion, you don't continue to use it and make excuses for it. Don't treat the analogies like you do God, making just excuses for it. Instead, let's go with things
maybe I
that
could be
are
more
demonstrable.
Sorry if it came off that way. No, I'll be more clear. The mind analogy I feel fits perfectly. What I was saying was, I think that evolutionists say that it wasn't like a bomb that exploded, the Big Bang. That's all I was saying about
Excuse me.
But therefore, the analogy still sticks.
Evolution doesn't have
that something happened.
Evolution doesn't have anything to do with the origin of the universe. Evolution is a matter of population genetics. If we are not talking about living populations that have DNA, then we're not talking about evolution.
Right. How about the Big Bang is what I was talking about,
What about the Big Bang? I don't care about the Big Bang. I'm not a fan of the Big Bang. I don't do cosmology. I study evolution, which has fuck all to do with the Big Bang. I don't care if the universe had an origin or how that would have happened or any of that. None of it changes the fact that we are evolving apes and that all of the scriptures of every religion were written by men who didn't know what they were talking about.
I got you. But are you seriously telling me you really don't care the origin of the universe or the origin of life? You really don't care about that, are you saying?
I don't think there is an origin of the universe. Now, the origin of life is quite different, but again, has fuck all to do with the Big Bang.
I got you. Because you don't really believe in the Big Bang?
I don't believe in anything, except, as I said, abstract concepts of human rights. I believe in human rights. I believe in the Constitution, things like that. But that's a different context. So there's nothing that there's nothing that I think is true that I am determined to believe is true, even if it's not true. That's the difference between a scientific position and a faith, a belief system. So you're determined to believe something is true, even though it's not evidently true, because you can't cite any evidence to support it.
I got you. I was kind of citing it, but you're not buying it. But it's okay, guys. I want to say thank you.
What evidence did you pretend to have? Show me what your evidence is. Don't make this accusation because it's false. What is your evidence? Or admit that you don't have any.
I told you, by the light of natural reason alone, we could know that a creator created everything that we see.
So you just jump to a false assumption. The question-begging fallacy.
You're calling it assumption. I know.
Arguments
because you assumed it without evidence.
Not when they're fallacious. So you did not give evidence. You gave me your erroneous lack of reasoning.
I got you. Guys,
Nick, your example that minds don't need creation is contradicted by billions of examples of minds that came into existence by, ultimately, natural causes. Every mind we have ever encountered has also been natural. So you saying, well, God is a mind, therefore it breaks all the laws of physics, also goes against all observations, all evidence that we actually have. And you basically are saying a mind gets around it for jack all reason just because you need it to be any sort of difference. Because here's the thing, a difference does not become an explanation. Brown dogs are not immortal for the sake of being brown and different from white dogs. So giving me an irrelevant point that you can't show is evidently true means that you basically got jack all to show that anything you believe is justified. And really, you'd have not even a decent word salad to protect yourself and your fallacious argumentation today.
Yeah, I told you guys are smarter than me, but it doesn't mean you guys are right, though. But I told you guys are smarter than me and way better debaters, and you guys do this for a living. So my hat's off to you guys, and thank you so much for giving me your time, guys, for real. I appreciate that and talking to me because, yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you, Nick. Okay, so we do have another theist in the call queue, and I'm eager to jump onto that. Are you, Aaron, are you ready? Okay. Do we need to discuss this one? I do need a moment to discuss what we just did, because over and over, I had to explain that atheists do not believe that everything came from nothing. I am so sick to death of that argument because I have to explain it so often. I wish people would just learn how to correct their own error. Oh, you don't believe that? Well, I'll stop accusing you of it then.
Thank you for watching that clip. If you enjoyed it, perhaps you should join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
At patreon.com/calltheline.